Jake here for American Trucks, and today I'm taking a look at the Barricade Extreme HD front bumper with LED fog lights, spotlights, and the 20-inch light bar, fitting 2021 and newer F-150s, excluding Power Stroke and Raptor models. If more protection, aggressive style, and additional lighting are on your wish list for a new bumper, Barricade has got you covered here with this Extreme HD setup. Not only does it have some seriously aggressive style, but it's going to provide your truck with additional protection out on the street or the trail, and you get a ton of additional lighting to boot. Now there's a lot to discuss here, but let's start with the styling. Not only is this cut up much higher than your standard bumper, but it also has a really aggressive style to it. Really gives the F-150 that strong, square-jawed type of appearance. And having that bumper sit up closer to the body of the truck means that you're gonna have a much better approach angle versus stock too. So if you are doing some off-roading, that's gonna be a nice benefit to have. Now, since this is a heavy-duty bumper too, you're also gonna get more impact protection. This thing it's solid, and if you're out busting down a trail, no need to be concerned about any obstacles. This thing can take a beating, and it's gonna look good out on the street as well. And while you're out on the trail or the street, should it get dark, you're going to have plenty of lighting to help you out of any situation. You get not one, not even two, but 3 different lighting types on the front here, all integrated into the bumper itself. You've got these pockets here and this one here for it. So you've got fog lights to give you that nice swath of low light for adverse conditions out on the street, plus spotlights and a huge 20-inch light bar for all the light output that you could possibly need out on a trail. Now these are all a matched setup too, so they look cohesive, making for a solid, consistent lighting package for the front end of your truck. Each set comes with its own separate switch and wiring, so you can use them in any combination you choose to suit the conditions. You also get provisions in the front bumper, as you can see here, for your parking sensors, so those can be ported over easily if your truck is so equipped. Now Barricade also offers a matching rear bumper as well if you'd like a complete setup, and we've got that available on our site as well. Construction of the bumper speaks to that heavy-duty part of the name that I was alluding to earlier. Comprised entirely of 5/32 steel plating, this one is tough. The steel here is cold formed into its final shape, which means that the material hasn't been heated and subsequently weakened. Cold forming helps maintain its structural rigidity. And it's capped off with a 2-stage finish. The first layer is an epoxy coating, and then that is covered with this textured black powder coat. So it's gonna provide excellent corrosion resistance and will be able to stand up to pretty much whatever you can throw its way. Now all of the bracketry is made from the same materials as well, so everything is gonna be really nice and sturdy. And those lights that we were talking about earlier are all pretty much the same type of construction. So they're all comprised of 5-watt Cree LEDs, and they provide a 6000K temperature light. So it's safe to say, again, they're gonna be really bright. The spots and fogs are each 3-inch squares with these 4 LEDs in it, and the center light bar is gonna measure 20 inches in overall length. Each individual light also has an aluminum housing over a clear polycarbonate lens, and they're all IP67 waterproof rated, so they're gonna be just as strong and durable as the bumper, maybe even a little bit more so. Pricing for this setup comes in at about $1,200, which for a full bumper with all of these LEDs included is a pretty good value for your money. Certainly less expensive than some of the other options out there, but this is still a good quality item with a lot of flexibility, an easy installation, and some nice protection. Speaking of installation, that's gonna get a 1 out of 3 on our difficulty meter, and the whole thing should take you about 2 hours to complete. Now this is a pretty straightforward process since this is a total bolt-on replacement for your stock bumper, so there's no need to modify your truck in any way. However, I would definitely recommend having a second set of hands with you because this is heavy, and fitting a bumper can be really cumbersome by yourself no matter how strong you are. Even if you're able to lift this thing into place, holding it there and getting some of the bolts in can be a bit of a tricky job, so just grab a buddy and put this on. You also, again, get all of the wiring and switches needed for those lights, and honestly, running all that will probably take you about as much time as it will to bolt up the bumper itself. But either way, this is certainly a project that you can undertake at home, and to show you that process now, let's head over to the install bay.
Tools required for this install include an impact gun, an electric ratchet, a clip remover tool, a hand ratchet, a couple 13mm wrenches, a 16 and 19mm wrench, a swivel adapter, an extension, a 10, 11, shallow 13, 16, 18, and 21mm sockets, a few zip ties, and the included Allen wrench. What's up, guys? Today we're installing a front bumper on our F-150, so let's get started. So our first step to removing our factory bumper is to disconnect our wiring harness that houses our fog lights as well as all of our parking sensors. So now if we come up to our passenger side frame rail, we have our harness. We have a gray tab that we're gonna have to pull back to unlock this. And once you have that disconnected, we can just pull our two connectors apart. Next, we can remove our 3 bolts on either side that hold our bumper to our frame. Now, on the one on the inside, we're gonna leave this on a couple threads just so that our bumper doesn't fall off before we wanna take it off. So I've got a 21mm socket with a swivel adapter and a little bit of an extension to get these out. And once again, we're gonna leave this one on a few threads just to hold everything in place. And then we can repeat that same process on the other side. So now we're ready to remove our factory bumper. So I've got a buddy to help me lift it off. We're gonna loosen that last nut and then we can fully remove our bumper. Now before we start assembling our new bumper, we're gonna have to remove our parking sensors as well as our wiring harness from our stock bumper. So we have a bunch of clips to pop out our wiring harness, and then we just need to bend back the tabs on our parking sensors to pop those out. So now we can bend back these 2 black plastic tabs and pop our parking sensor out of place. And then we'll push down on our white tab to release our sensor from our connector. And then we can do that same exact thing for our 3 remaining sensors. Now with all of our parking sensors removed, we can remove our wiring harness. Now this is held in by a bunch of clips running across the bumper. And then we also have 2 connectors on either side that we'll have to remove. So now we can start by disconnecting our connectors. We have a black tab on the top side of this one that we can pull out to remove. On our bottom, we have a red tab that we're gonna have to pull out this way to unlock it. And then we can push down on our tab to release it. And next we can start working on our push clips. So I got a clip remover tool to pop these out. Now some of our clips are broken, but this runs right underneath the fog light and then comes out over here, where we can continue popping out our clips. And then we can get our clips across the front. And then we can repeat the same process on the other side. So now we can begin to feed our wire harness behind our fog light and out through the center. And then we can do that same thing on the other side and fully remove our harness. So now we're ready to start assembling our new bumper. The first thing we're gonna get installed is our parking sensors. Now we're gonna have to pop off this ring around the edge of our parking sensor, and we'll be replacing it with one of our foam washers. And then we'll put it into its hole, and then on the back side, we'll get a foam spacer and our cap. Now this bumper has spots for 6 parking sensors. Ours only has 4, so we have these parking sensor block-off caps that we're gonna put on either corner. So now we'll start off with our block-off caps. These are just gonna line up on the hole and then just press them flat in. And then we can repeat that same process on the other side. So now we can grab our first parking sensor. We're gonna pop off this ring around the edge. And then we can pop on our foam washer. press that in. We're going to want to make sure that these are pointing inward so that we can slip our wire harness connector on there. And then we can grab our foam spacer and our cap. And then we'll pop that right on top. And then we can repeat that same process for our last 3 sensors. Next, we can install our center light bar. So we have our 2 brackets that we're going to be mounting up here. We're going to be using our bolt with our locking washer, our flat washer, and that'll go through the top. And then we'll get another flat washer and our nut on the bottom side. We're not going to tighten these down completely yet until we have our light bar in and we can get it aligned. Now these brackets are labeled driver and passenger, however they are the same exact bracket. And then we can grab our light bar and center it in our opening. And then we'll slide our brackets into place. We'll be using our shorter of the 2 bolts with a lock washer and a flat washer. And then we can thread those into threaded holes in our light bar. So now once we have all of our hardware installed, we can tighten down the top bolt on our bracket with a couple 13mm wrenches. And then we can grab a 13mm socket to tighten down our side bolt. And then we'll do that same thing on the other side. So now we can mount our brackets to our fog lights. Now we have 2 spots in there where we have to drop a nut in. Then our bracket will be going on the inside like that. And we have our 2 bolts that are going to go through the sides. So once you get one side in there, we can install our bracket, put one of our bolts through, and then we can come back to our other side, drop our nut in, and then install our bolt. And we'll tighten down both sides with the Allen key that's included in our kit. And then we'll repeat that same process for the rest of our fog lights. So now we can grab the connector side of our fog light and we're going to be putting them through these holes. And then we can take our bolt with a locking washer and flat washer and put that up through our bracket. Slide our fog light in place, slide it through our hole in the top, and then we can get our nut on the top side. And then we can grab a 13mm wrench for our bolt side and a 13mm socket for our nut side to tighten this down. And then we can repeat that same process for the rest of our fog lights. So now we're ready to start installing all of our harnesses. Now the side with the switch is going to go through a grommet in our firewall and into the cabin. And then we have some connectors that we're going to hook up to our battery terminals. So now we can grab our switch and put that down through our grommet. And then we can repeat that same process for our other 2 switches. So now I've run our wires across the engine bay because we're going to have to connect everything to our battery. And now we're going to want to grab a couple zip ties just to clean up our wiring mess. So we can go right through these clips on our cowl. And then we can zip tie one to this harness just to route it down towards our battery. And then we can grab a set of scissors or diagonal cutters just to chop off the excess of our zip ties. Now you can wire this however you'd like. We're just gonna hook all this up to our battery right here. So we'll take an 11mm socket to loosen up the nut on our positive. And then we can grab all of our positive wires. And then we'll reinstall our nut on top. And we'll tighten that down with that same 11mm socket. And then we can switch to our 10mm socket for our negative side. And then we'll grab our negatives. And then reinstall our nut. And then we can tighten that down with our 10mm socket. And then next we can run all of our connectors that we're going to be hooking up to the lights in our bumper. So we have a nice spot right here where we can drop our wires straight down, or it won't get in the way of any moving parts. And now once we have all of our wires run to the bottom, we're ready to install our bumper. Next we can install our frame brackets. So these are going to meet up to the frame. We're going to be putting our bolt with a flat washer through the front side, followed by another flat washer and a locking nut on the back side. And then we can take an 18mm socket on our bolt side and a 19mm wrench on our nut side to tighten this down. And then we can repeat that same process on the other side. So now we're ready to install our bumper onto the truck. So we're going to be lining it up to our 3 holes in the side. That'll match up to 3 holes in our bumper. Then we have a bolt with a lock washer and a flat washer that we'll put through one side. And then on the other side, we'll come in with another flat washer and our nut. So now once you've got yourself a buddy, you can lift up the bumper and get your hardware installed. So now we can grab a 16mm socket and a 16mm wrench to tighten down our hardware. And now we can repeat that same process on the other side. So now we're ready to start making our connections for all of our lights. Now the way I have this laid out is the wire going off of the switch with only one wire is for our light bar. And then I've got the 2 wires coming off of each of our switches separated. Now we have fog lights and spotlights. So we're gonna take one of each of our pair for each side for our fog light. And then we have ours on this side that will take one to each side for our spotlights. So now first I've got our harness, that's just a single harness coming off of our switch. That's gonna go to our light bar. So we'll plug that in. Now these 2 wires are both coming off of the same switch, so these are gonna be for our outermost fog lights. So we'll plug that into the outermost. And then this wire we can take back over to the other side. We're gonna plug this into our outermost fog light on the other side. And then the 2 harnesses that I have left over are gonna go for our innermost fog lights. So we'll bring this from the other side and plug that in, and then we'll do the same thing for our inner fog light on the other side. So now we can bunch up all of our excess wire and zip tie it up out of the way. You can route your wires however you'd like. I've got a nice set of holes up here that I can run 2 zip ties through. to keep everything nice and clean. Next, we can reinstall our main harness with all of our parking sensor connectors. So first we can connect our main connector, and then we'll pull down on that gray tab to lock that into place. And then we can route our harness to get our parking sensors plugged in. So now I'm just gonna take the passenger side of our harness and run it over top of our frame rail. And then we can grab the connector for our parking sensor and plug it in. And then we can repeat that same process for the rest of our parking sensors and then zip tie up the excess of our harness. And now we can just zip tie our harness up and out of the way. And then we can grab a pair of scissors or diagonal cutters to chop off the excess of our zip tie. So now the last thing to do, and this is an optional step for if you live in a state where you need a front license plate or if you just want to run a front license plate, we have these little clips that we'll press in. And then we have screws included in the kit to attach your license plate. So now we can come into the interior. We're going to peel back the double-sided tape strip on our switches and press them down. Now you can mount these wherever you'd like. I'm just putting them right here. So that'll wrap up this review and install of the Barricade Extreme HD front bumper with LED fog lights, spotlights, and 20-inch LED light bar for your 2021 and newer F-150s, excluding the Power Stroke and the Raptor. Thank you for watching, and for all things F-150, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.